The dying world of Zhetta was once a planet full of life. Trees touched the sky, rivers sang through the valleys, and the air smelled sweet with flowers. The people of Zhetta lived in peace with nature, but that time was long gone. Now, Zhetta was a land of dust, smoke, and silence. The skies were no longer blue. They burned red with heat and poison. The rivers had turned to dry cracks in the earth, and not a single flower had bloomed in many years. The people were dying. Their skin was thin, their eyes hollow. Food was almost gone. Water was a treasure. Only the rich leaders had enough to drink. The poor lived in broken houses made of scrap metal. Children cried through the night from hunger. Mothers had nothing to give them except dry promises. Every day, the sun rose like a fireball and scorched the ground. The crops withered before they could grow. The wind brought only dust. The people stopped smiling. They stopped dreaming. And, slowly, they stopped hoping. In the largest city of Zhetta, called Vera, the leaders gathered. They wore fine clothes, but their faces were pale with fear. They had no plan. They had no answers. The planet was dying, and no one could stop it. One old man, a former scientist, spoke in the hall. We sent signals to the stars. We begged for help, but no one came. A younger leader shook his head. No one will come. We are alone. We must accept our end. But deep in the crowd, a young girl whispered to her brother, someone will come. I know it. I dreamed it. He laughed weakly. Dreams don't feed us. But that night, as the city of Vera slept under a blood-red sky, a strange sound came from above. It was like a hum, soft at first, then louder. People looked up. They saw a glowing shape moving across the stars. It was not a moon. It was not a comet. It moved with purpose. More lights appeared behind it. They were silent, like ghosts, but bright as suns. The people screamed. Some ran. Some fell to their knees in fear. The youngest shouted, the sky is falling. The elders cried, the gods have returned. The ships did not fire. They did not land. They hovered for hours, high above the broken world, watching, waiting. Then, one ship opened from below. A beam of soft white light stretched down like a finger from heaven. From that light, something dropped, something in the shape of a person. It fell fast, but landed gently, as if the sky itself caught it. The villagers near the edge of Vera ran to see. They found a figure lying on the ground, covered in a silver suit, breathing slowly. It was not a Zettan. Its skin was lighter. Its face was smooth, not scaled. And it was big, taller and broader than any Zhetta. It was human. The people stared in silence. No one dared move. The human opened its eyes. They were calm, blue like the ocean. Zhetta had lost. One brave child stepped forward. She touched the human's hand. Are you here to save us? She whispered. The human looked around at the dry land, the hungry faces, the cracked sky. Then he stood up, tall and steady. He pulled a small object from his suit and pressed it against the child's arm. It beeped softly, and her breathing became easy. Her pain faded. She smiled for the first time in weeks. The villagers gasped. Is he magic? One asked. No, said the old woman. He is from Earth. A human. The human spoke, but his words were strange. No one understood, but his actions spoke louder. He pulled out tools, lit up machines, and began to work. Right there in the dust, the leaders soon arrived. They watched from a distance, unsure whether this creature was a friend or an enemy. But the people had already made their choice. They surrounded the human, watching, learning, hoping. That night, the sky remained red. The stars were quiet. But something had changed. A spark had returned. Hope, small and scared, had crawled back into the hearts of the people of Zhetta, and, far above, inside the waiting ships, others watched with quiet eyes. They were not here for war, but they were ready for one. The man who fell from the sky. No one on Zhetta had ever seen a creature like him. He was not thin and weak like the Zettans. His body was strong, his shoulders wide, and his eyes clear like untouched water. He had fallen from the sky, yet stood like he belonged to the land. His silver suit sparkled under the red sun. His face showed no fear, only focus. At first, the villagers kept their distance. They hid behind walls and broken machines, watching every move he made. The children were told to stay away, but they peeked from corners. One old woman said, "Be careful. He might be a weapon sent from the stars." But the human did not harm anyone. He walked calmly through the village, scanning everything with his strange round device. He touched a dry water pipe and listened to the sound it made. He looked up at the dead sky as if he could fix it. Then something strange happened. The youngest child in the village, a girl who had not spoken in weeks, fell to the ground. She was sick, shaking from the inside. The villagers shouted for help, but they had no medicine left. Just as her mother screamed, the human pushed through the crowd. Without speaking a word, he knelt down beside the girl. He opened a small case from his belt. Inside was a tiny glowing needle and a clear liquid. He gently placed the needle on the girl's neck. It hissed softly. Within moments, her breathing slowed. The color returned to her face. She opened her eyes. "She's alive," her mother whispered, tears running down her face. The people stared at the human in shock. The old woman who warned everyone before now stepped forward and said, "He's not a weapon. He's a healer." The human stood and looked at the people around him. He said something in his language, but no one understood. Still, he smiled, and somehow they understood that. From that moment, everything changed. The villagers brought him broken tools, dead machines, and cracked wires. He fixed many of them. He powered a light that hadn't worked in years. He made water flow again from an old pump. The people began to follow him, watching how he used his hands, how he pressed buttons, how he listened to even the wind. But he was not just working. He was waiting. Every night, he would climb to the tallest part of the village and look up at the sky. He would press a small device near his mouth and speak into it. The words were soft and steady, full of meaning none of the Zettans could understand. One night, the village elder asked, "Who are you waiting for?" The human turned to him, placed a hand on the elder's shoulder, and simply said one word, "Others." The next morning, the earth trembled. It wasn't like the usual shakes of a dying planet. This one felt different, deeper, stronger, like something big was moving above. Everyone looked up. Dark shapes began appearing through the red clouds. Huge flying machines, silent, round, glowing from below. They came, slowly, carefully, but filled the sky like giants. The villagers screamed. Some ran to hide. But the human, the one who had fallen days ago, didn't move. He stood calmly, eyes up, and raised his hand. The ships stopped above the village. They made no sound, just hovered. Then, beams of light came down. From those lights, more humans appeared, this time in groups. Men and women in suits like the first, each carrying supplies, tools, and strange weapons. The first human looked at the others and gave a nod. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The Zettans gathered in silence. The old woman stepped forward again and asked, "Are they here to save us too?" The first human looked at her and replied, softly this time, in their own language, "We are here to help." The crowd gasped. He had learned their words. And now, he had brought more. The human leader, now standing among his team, looked around at the broken land. He touched a small device on his wrist, and suddenly, dozens of machines dropped from the sky, diggers, builders, cleaners, all humming with quiet power. The people of Zhetta stared in wonder. For the first time in years, the air didn't feel hopeless. For the first time in years, someone had come not to take, but to give. But behind all the help and kindness, something darker was hiding. Because as the humans worked, the earth shook again. And this time, the human leader stopped smiling. He looked down at the dirt and said one chilling line to his team. "It's waking up." And no one knew what it was yet. More humans arrive, and the world shakes. The village of Vera had never seen such power. The sky was no longer just red. It was full of strange human ships. They hovered like metal clouds, silent and glowing, casting silver light across the dusty ground. Children ran to follow the beams. Elders stood in silence, their hearts torn between fear and wonder. Never before had Zhetta felt so small beneath something so big. The first human, the one who had fallen from the sky, stood in the center of the village. He raised one hand. At his signal, the ships opened. From their bellies came more humans. Dozens. Hundreds. They wore the same armor, carried the same tools, and walked with purpose. But they did not come with guns raised. They came with crates of food. They came with water filters. They came with seeds. One human woman stepped forward and knelt in the dirt. She dug her hands into the ground and touched it softly, like greeting an old friend. Then she looked up at the villagers and smiled. Still alive, she said in the human language. The people did not understand her words, but they felt her meaning. These were not enemies. These were builders, fixers, helpers. Over the next 2 days, the humans worked without rest. They repaired old pumps, replaced rotting pipes, and set up machines that cleaned the poisonous air. One human, tall, with dark hair, stood on a metal box and showed the villagers how to use small hand machines to make clean water. Another group handed out warm food that steamed with a smell the Zettans had never known. For the first time in years, the people ate until their stomachs were full. Children laughed again. Mothers smiled. Fathers dropped to their knees, crying in thanks. But the human leader was not smiling, but he walked past the joy and into the dead riverbed that split the village in two. He stared at the dry, cracked earth. Then he called for his engineers. They rolled in large machines, massive drills with legs like insects and arms like claws. The villagers watched in confusion as the humans dug deep into the land, deeper than anyone had dared in centuries. One villager, a young man named Tarek, asked the human leader through a translator, "Why dig here? There is no water." The leader replied, "We're not looking for water." That answer made the elders nervous. They gathered and told the old stories, tales of something buried deep below. A creature, maybe. A curse. No one agreed what it was. But all stories ended the same way. Do not disturb the ground. The next day, the machines hit something. It wasn't rock. It wasn't soil. It was metal. Old, cold, and humming. The drills stopped. The engineers pulled back. The ground began to shake. At first, it was gentle, like a whisper. But then the tremor grew louder, angrier. The villagers ran in fear. Mothers grabbed children. The old one screamed, "You've woken it." Cracks opened in the ground. A foul smell rose, like burning oil and rotten eggs. Black mist poured from below. The humans formed a wall between the hole and the village, weapons drawn, eyes alert. The human leader's voice came through a loudspeaker. "Do not panic. Stay back." But it was too late. Something was rising. The ground broke open like a wound. From the darkness, a massive shape pushed upward. It was smooth, black, and covered in thick armor-like skin. Red lights blinked along its body. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't a beast. It was something in between. The villagers screamed. One shouted, "It's the hunger, the one that drank the oceans." The creature didn't attack. Not yet. It just stood half-buried, breathing, watching. The human soldiers didn't move. They held their ground. The leader stepped forward and looked the beast in the eye. "We didn't come for war," he said quietly. "But we're not afraid of it." The wind fell silent, and all of Zhetta held its breath. Hope had returned. But now, something older had awakened, and it was hungry. The thing beneath the planet, the black shape in the hole, didn't move like a machine. It breathed. Its chest rose and fell in long, slow motions, like it had been sleeping for thousands of years, and was now waking up to find strangers above its bed. The people of Zhetta had no name for it. Only old warnings passed. From mouth to mouth, don't dig too deep. Don't wake what sleeps below. But the stories had turned into myths, and the myths into jokes. Until now. Now the earth was trembling beneath their feet. The human soldiers formed a tight circle around the crater. Their weapons locked on the shape, glowing with quiet blue lights. The human leader, known to his team as Commander Rourke, stood at the edge of the hole, his jaw tight. The villagers gathered behind him, frozen with fear. The sky burned darker than usual, as if even the sun was afraid to shine. "It's not attacking," one human whispered. "It's learning," said another. "It's watching us." Then came the sound, a low hum, deep and heavy, that made the bones in people's bodies vibrate. It didn't come from the air, it came from inside their chests. Even the children began to cry. One little boy screamed, "It's speaking." But no one understood the language, not even the humans. The machine beast shifted. Its long spine twisted, revealing jagged metal ribs and pulsing red veins beneath its shell. It was alive, but part of it was clearly built. This thing had been designed, engineered. But by who? And why? Commander Rourke turned to his second-in-command. "Pull back the team. Get the villagers to safety. And prep the plasma charges." "You think it's hostile?" the officer asked. "I think it's a god," Rourke said, eyes still locked on the beast. and I don't trust gods." The villagers resisted. Some dropped to their knees, praying to the creature. Others shouted at the humans, blaming them for digging too far, for bringing the curse back to life. Panic spread quickly, but in the middle of the chaos, one elder stepped forward. Her name was Ayla. She had no family left. She walked slowly, carrying only a wooden staff and years of memory. She stood beside Commander Rourke and whispered, "The legends say it swallowed the oceans. It hated noise. It slept only when the world became silent." Rourke nodded. "And now we woke it up with drills and engines." Ayla closed her eyes and added, "It doesn't just kill. It feeds on despair. It loves fear." That's when the beast moved, not quickly, but with power. Its body pulled itself higher from the hole, dragging up massive arms made of fused bone and steel. Its chest opened slightly, revealing a deep red glow that pulsed like a heart. The hum returned, louder this time. Villagers dropped to the ground, covering their ears. Some fainted. Even the human soldiers staggered back. Commander Rourke shouted, "Defensive line. Aim high." Weapons charged. Lights flared, but before a single shot was fired, something unexpected happened. The first human, the one who had fallen from the sky, stepped forward. He removed his helmet slowly. His face was calm. He walked straight to the edge of the crater and raised both hands. He spoke a single word in a soft, strange tone. The hum paused. The creature stopped moving. It looked at him, and one dared breathe. The human repeated the word. This time, the beast tilted its head, like it was thinking. The moment lasted only seconds. Then the sky cracked open. A bolt of dark lightning split the air above the hole. From the clouds, more shapes appeared, but they were not human ships. Sleek, sharp, and painted in unnatural black, they moved like shadows. The villagers screamed again. One human soldier whispered in horror, "Those aren't ours." Commander Rourke shouted, "Everyone back." That's not the only thing waking up. From the hole, the beast roared, not in pain, but in anger. It leapt from the ground, towering over the land, as if protecting Zhetta from something worse coming from the sky. And at that moment, both humans and Zettans realized the thing they feared beneath the planet, maybe the only thing that could save it. Asterisk humanity's firepower. The sky was no longer red. Now it burned with black fire and lightning. Strange enemy ships tore through the clouds, their shadows falling over the village like sharp knives. They circled above like hungry birds, preparing to strike. Their design was nothing like the humans. These were darker, older, cruel in shape. Below them stood the thing from the hole, taller than any building, its body made of living metal and ancient rage. The people of Zhetta called it the Hunger, but now it faced the sky like a guardian. Its red heart pulsed faster. Its claws scraped the ground, ready, and beside it stood the humans. Commander Rourke didn't wait. "All units, battle formation. Civilian protection is top priority. If it moves to defend us, we let it. If it turns on us, we bury it." Weapons unlocked. Drones launched. Fields of blue energy rose like glowing walls around the village. But the villagers couldn't look away from the beast. The same monster they feared for generations was now standing between them and the storm. Was this a trick? Was this the end? Or was it something far greater, redemption? The first shot came from the sky. One of the enemy ships fired a beam of dark energy straight toward the beast, but it didn't even flinch. The blast hit its chest and vanished. The Hunger opened its mouth, not to roar, but to scream a sound that bent the air. It leapt into the sky with impossible speed and slammed into the enemy ship. One blow, and the shadow craft exploded into a shower of black metal. The villagers gasped. The humans didn't. They were already moving. Commander Rourke pointed to the horizon. "Get the grav cannon online." From one of the larger human ships, a circular tower began to rise. It unfolded like a flower, revealing the core of Earth's most powerful weapon. The grav cannon, a device banned by most interstellar laws, had one purpose: to erase anything it touched. More enemy ships broke formation and flew low, trying to strike at the village directly. Human turrets locked on and fired. Blue streaks of light hit the invaders mid-air, sending them spinning to the ground like dying insects. But it wasn't enough. One enemy vessel slipped through and crashed into the center of Vera. Fire and smoke rose instantly. Screams followed. The hunger turned, roared, and with a flash of speed, slammed its body into the wreckage, protecting the villagers inside. It wasn't fighting for them, it was fighting beside them. That was the moment the villagers understood. The thing they had buried in fear had been waiting for a reason to rise. And now it had one. Rourke shouted over the noise. Grav cannon ready? His team replied, charging. 10 seconds. Target their mothership. Wipe them from the sky. The enemy command vessel appeared high above, darker than space itself. It began to open its core weapon. The humans were just seconds behind. Commander. Rourke's voice was cold and steady. Fire. The grav cannon exploded with silent energy. A beam of twisted gravity shot upward, bending light, pulling space inward like a hole in the world. It slammed into the enemy vessel. For 1 second, everything froze. Then, boom! A shockwave burst through the sky. The enemy mothership crumbled in the air, pulled into itself, and vanished like ash. The remaining shadow ships fled without another shot. Silence returned. The village stood in smoke and dust. The air was hot, but still. The sky slowly faded back to red. The hunger, now burned and bleeding, fell to one knee. The hunger, now burned and bleeding, fell to one knee. Its red heart flickered like a fading star. The first human walked toward it, alone. He placed one hand on the creature's glowing chest. It looked at him. Then the beast slowly sank back into the earth, its body folding into the hole it had risen from. Like it never existed at all, but it left something behind. A deep trench that now filled with water. Real water. The villagers fell to their knees in disbelief. Commander Rourke stood beside them, silent, watching the new river form from the wound. In the land, behind him, a young Zettan girl whispered, "The sky brought us death once, but today it brought us life." And far above, in a place no one could see, something else stirred, because the battle wasn't over. It had just begun. Asterisk the message from deep space. The fires were still cooling when the humans heard it. A soft, repeating pulse. It didn't come from the sky. It came from the edge of the system. A signal. Commander Rourke stood over a field of broken ships and scattered parts, his boots sinking into the ash-covered ground. The battle was over, but his face showed no peace. His tech officer ran up, holding a portable receiver. "Commander," she said breathlessly, "we picked up a transmission. It's not ours. Not Zettan either. It's something older." Rourke took the device and pressed play. The sound was strange, sharp and slow, like a whisper turned into metal. But hidden in the static were words, translated into the Earth language. Through their systems, a clear message came through. "You were warned. This planet was sealed for a reason. You opened the gate. Now suffer what comes." Everyone fell silent. Even the villagers, who could not understand the alien language, felt the fear in the humans' faces. "What gate?" the engineer asked quietly. Rourke's eyes narrowed. The creature wasn't the gate. He looked toward the stars. It was the lock. Before anyone could respond, the sky dimmed again, not with ships, but with something worse. A shadow, but this time, not from above. From space itself. A tear. The sky cracked like glass, and through it came nothing. No ship. No engine sound, just silence. But the human system screamed with warnings. Gravitational disruption detected. Time distortion possible. Origin unknown. From the broken sky, something stepped through. Not metal. Not beast. Not even matter in the way they understood. It had no shape, but all could see it. It had no face, but all could feel it staring. Villagers dropped to their knees, not in prayer this time, but in terror. The humans stepped back, weapons shaking. "Commander." Rourke stood still. Then, the voice came again, not from the device, not from any ship, but from inside every mind. "You opened the door. You broke the peace. Now we return to collect." One soldier cried out, "Is this another enemy?" "No," whispered the human who first fell from the sky. "This is what they were hiding from." In the distance, the hunger, once thought, buried again, shook the ground. Its red light glowed from deep underground. But it did not rise. It trembled. Even that ancient being feared this new arrival. The villagers begged to be taken away. "Please," they cried to the humans. "Your ships can fly. Take us." But Rourke shook his head slowly. "This isn't something we can run from." He turned to his team. We need allies. Now, his second-in-command asked, Who? Earth is too far. Our fleet is scattered. No, Rourke said, pointing to the villagers. We stand together. The Zettan elder stepped forward, gripping her staff with shaking hands. We are weak. We don't have weapons. We don't even understand this thing. You don't need weapons, Rourke replied. You need will. He lifted his hand, and a small blue device floated above his palm. It projected an image, a plan, a fusion of human tech and Zettan crystal tools, a bond between two worlds. This planet will not fall again. Not while we breathe. At that moment, in a valley once dry and forgotten, humans and aliens began working together, not to escape, but to prepare. Because the enemy wasn't a race, that it wasn't a machine, that it was the return of something much worse, something that waited for hope to be born, so it could crush it. Asterisk Zettans and humans, together against the unknown. The shadow didn't leave, that it stayed, above the world, around the stars, inside every thought. The message had been clear. You broke the seal. Now you pay. But the people of Zhetta had paid long enough. And for the first time in generations, they weren't alone. Beneath the broken skies, something incredible was happening. Villagers who once could barely lift a tool now carried human devices, tools that turned dust into bricks and broken metal into shields. Human engineers taught Zettan farmers how to power fields using solar heat trapped under the ash. The elders, once weak and forgotten, now sat with Earth scientists, combining memories with data. Together, they built something new. Not just machines. Defense. A chance. Commander Rourke moved through the camps like a silent force. His orders were fast, but his eyes showed something deeper. Not just worry, but belief. They came through space to end us, he said one night around a blue fire. They think we'll fall apart, but we won't give them that. The Zettan elder Alan nodded beside him. We were already dead before you came. But now, even our bones want to rise again. Across the plains, the cracks from the old crater began to glow. The hunger, still beneath the earth, was not dead. It was healing, watching, listening. The creature was not humanity's creation, but it now recognized them. It had once been a guardian, then a prison. Now, maybe, a partner, and the enemy knew it. The tear in space began to pulse, faster, stronger. Through it came shapes, not ships, not creatures, but dark things with wings like screams and eyes that bled black light. They moved in silence, but brought chaos wherever they flew. They didn't want to conquer Zhetta, they wanted to erase it. Rourke stood atop the central platform as alarms screamed. His voice cut through the fear. Shields up. Sky cannons active. Zettan squads to the flanks. Hold that line. Zettans, once farmers, traders, singers, now stood in armor made from their own stone and human steel. They had no war songs, but their silence meant more. The battle began. The first wave struck fast. One village fell, then two. But humans and Zettans pushed back. Together, they created a wall of fire and will. No longer were the humans just visitors. No longer were the Zettans just survivors. They were soldiers of something new. A young Zettan girl who once begged for water now stood atop a tower, guiding a laser turret with both hands. Her eyes were sharp. Her aim was perfect. A human soldier, bleeding from his arm, smiled at her and shouted, "Nice shot." She smiled back. I learned from the best. In the final hour, the sky itself turned dark, not from smoke, but from something beyond. The central enemy, a floating being of pure shadow, descended. It spoke into every mind. You should have stayed broken. But the response didn't come from a human. It came from the ground. A deep rumble, a sharp roar, and then the hunger rose once more. This time, it didn't climb from the earth to attack. It flew. Massive wings of crystal and flame burst from its sides. Its body was now covered in armor forged from both stone and earth alloy. The people gasped. It had changed. It had evolved. It had chosen a side. And it attacked. The final clash wasn't silent. It shattered mountains, split clouds, melted steel. But when the dust settled, Zhetta still stood. The tear in space sealed itself. The shadow was gone. The land was scarred, but alive. And for the first time in memory, the people didn't fear the sky. The villagers gathered where it all began, beside the crater. Beside the humans, a small Zettan child held the hand of the first human who had fallen to their world. She asked, "Will they come back?" The human looked at the stars and said, "Maybe. Will we win again?" He smiled. "We won once, because we stood alone. We won again, because we stood together." And as the stars returned to their quiet glow, Zetta was no longer the dying planet. The IT was the planet where hope fell from the sky and never left.